It's that time of the week again, guys. It's time for me to predict the big games of this upcoming week. I plan to do this every single week, and this week it's week 2, so we have a lot of games to go over. I'm also at the end going to be revealing my power ratings poll, the update to that. Just once again to remind you guys, it's a power ratings poll, not a power rankings poll. So basically, it takes into account which teams I think are the best teams in the country, not necessarily what their records are. So there might be some teams that are higher on the list, even though they lost some, and maybe some teams that are lower on the list, even though they won their games. Um, I hope that makes sense to you guys, similar to what Josh Pay does on his show with the power ratings poll. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get right into it with the big games of the week. Starting out with Texas at Michigan, and this is a really big game for some. For me, it's a game I'm really confident in. It is a home game for Michigan, but I think Texas is gonna crush this matchup. It's really hard to pinpoint a weakness for Texas after they shut out Colorado State. They held Colorado State to under 200 yards of total defense or total offense. I'm sorry, and the run defense could have been better, but that does bode well for Michigan. But Michigan looked pretty bad against Fresno State last week. Um, Maybe they didn't show their full hand. I know that they're trying out different quarterbacks, but the fact that they don't know who their quarterback is going to be is pretty concerning. And neither of the quarterback that they showed was impressive last week, so we'll have to see on that. Michigan will obviously have a great defense as usual, but I do doubt that their offense can really score much, especially against a defense that looks to be as good as Texas's. They should be somewhat effective on the ground, but I don't think they're going to perform well in obvious passing situations or third and longs. Basically, I think Texas has a more balanced offense, and I think that they should be able to put up points despite Michigan's stellar defense. And since I doubt Michigan's ability to really score against a half decent defense, I'm taking Texas. And as a bonus, I'm also going to take them to cover. That's not really going to be part of these picks. It's just something that I thought, for this specifically, I personally am picking Texas to cover. The next game I have is Georgia Tech at Syracuse, and obviously Georgia Tech won big in Week 1 against Florida State. But I do think that win looks a little bit less impressive now after we saw how Florida State performed against Boston College. It makes me think maybe Georgia Tech's 3-point win is not really all that special, but my gut is telling me that Georgia Tech is still much better than they were last year, and I think that they're going to win another one here on the road. Georgia Tech likes to run the ball, and I don't think they're really going to have any problems running it against this Syracuse defense. Syracuse had trouble stopping Ohio's run game, so if they can't stop Ohio's run game, I think that Georgia Tech should be able to really expose that. And obviously, we've already seen Georgia Tech play on the road, and this environment is not super intimidating. So I don't think that's going to be much of a factor. I do also think that Georgia Tech's style of offense just matches up more favorably against Syracuse's defense, and I also think that Syracuse's defense cannot really take advantage of Georgia Tech's defensive weaknesses. So I have Georgia Tech all day long. The next game I have is Arkansas at Oklahoma State, and this is my game of the week and probably the hardest one to pick. Oklahoma State is probably the obvious choice, and it is who I'm picking. But Arkansas won 70-0 last week, and I know it was against an inferior team, but it's still really impressive. I think the key matchup here is going to be Ollie Gordon versus that Arkansas defense. If Arkansas can keep him in check and force obvious passing situations, they could have a real shot at winning this game. Oklahoma State, their quarterback, Alan Bowman, did play well against South Dakota State, but he has a history of being pretty inaccurate, and I feel like those issues may resurface in this game. But obviously, for them to get to that point, Arkansas has to, like I said, stop that Ollie Gordon. And Ollie Gordon is a monster running back. I don't really know if I see that happening. And I think that Oklahoma State is, while they are known for their defense, they're definitely not known for their defense, I should say. So there definitely are plays to be had there for Arkansas, especially on the ground. I think Arkansas is going to be able to run the ball pretty well. But at the end of the day, Oklahoma State just has more paths to victory. Plus, it's a home game and for Oklahoma State, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it be a close game. It could be a statement win for Arkansas if I'm wrong, but I am picking Oklahoma State but I would not pick them to cover. So we'll see. That one I'm back and forth on. I think it could be a really close game. The next game I have is Kansas State at Tulane. This game is at Tulane, but I think Kansas State is winning this no problem. Tulane has been one of the better G5 schools recently, and even beating Kansas State the last time that these two matched up. But they have a new head coach. They have a new quarterback who's a redshirt freshman that's leading the team, and I just don't think that they're going to be able to handle a Kansas State team that has just been getting better and better every year and has an edge in almost every single position. Kansas State has a dangerous quarterback who is a dual threat and should be able to have no problem winning this game in a variety of different ways. I think it could get really ugly fast, so I'm picking Kansas State. The next game I have is Iowa State at Iowa, and this is a game that I think week one really changed my opinion on. Iowa State could only hold, I believe it was North Dakota to 21. Oh no, they could only score 21 points on North Dakota. So how are they going to really score on Iowa, a team who's historically incredible on defense? It is also a home game for Iowa, and they have owned the series as of late. So they have that going for them. Iowa also scored 40 points in their game. And while I definitely don't think that they have everything figured out on offense, I mean, it's still Iowa. I do think they're going to be able to outscore Iowa State, though. And I basically expect another low-scoring battle between these two. It's something that's very common in this matchup, but I do think Iowa's going to be able to win it. And not that I'm going to predict this to happen, but I think it's going to be so. I think it's going to be so skewed that I think I will maybe be able to win it off of just one score. I think that I will maybe only have one score on the board and still win this game. Not entirely sure, but I think it's definitely a possibility. Next, I have Tennessee at North Carolina State, and this is a game that I think lost a lot of hype for me after seeing Tennessee basically be exactly what I expected them to be, and then seeing North Carolina State being the opposite. They struggled to come back and win against an FCS school who was not even good in Western Carolina. I think Tennessee is going to easily take this one. North Carolina State couldn't stop Western Carolina's pass rush. So how are they going to stop one of the best defensive players in the country, James Pierce Jr.? And their defense couldn't stop Western Carolina either. So how are they going to stop Nico Iamaleava and all the weapons that he has from getting into the end zone? Maybe North Carolina State has a really good practice week and can come together in week two, but I think it's just too little too late. I'm picking Tennessee. I think they're going to crush this game. And last but not least, I have Boise State at Oregon. And this is a game that I'm pretty conflicted on because my last outlandish upset pick did come back to bite me in the butt. But I think, well, to be honest, this one is more than likely going to do the same. But I think I have to pick Boise State in this game for the upset. I think it's a good spot for the Broncos to pull Oregon. It doesn't seem like Oregon has it all figured out offensively yet. And they looked pretty pitiful against Idaho, who's also an FCS school. And the offense just failed to take off. And Oregon's defense did look solid, but Boise can definitely score. They put up 56 last week. Unfortunately, the Broncos did give up 45 points, so there's definitely a scenario where Oregon's offense can get right against this Boise State defense. But at the end of the day, Boise State is one of the best G5 schools in the country. They have a history of upsetting major programs, and that's why I'm picking them to do it again here. On paper, obviously, Oregon is the better team, but they didn't play on paper last week, and last time I checked, they're not going to play on paper this week. So I'm going to be crazy enough to make the unlikely pick and take the Broncos in this one. So those are all my big game predictions. I know there's some that I missed. I do want to just shout out the Kentucky-South Carolina game. Obviously, I think that game is going to be, to me, honestly, I think it's going to be a pretty big blowout. I think Kentucky's going to take care of South Carolina. That's kind of why I didn't put it on this list, because I think South Carolina is just terrible this year, and I think Kentucky's a sneaky good team. So in case you wanted a little bit of rundown on that, that's what I got there. But we're going to go ahead and move on to my top 25, and we're going to go ahead and start. Let's just go ahead and give you guys a look at what it looks like, and then I'm going to kind of explain some of the decisions that I made. Obviously, Florida State is out, as well as Virginia Tech and North Carolina State. Florida State's lost 2 already, so that's why they're out. And North Carolina State and Virginia Tech just looked pretty poor against their FCS opponents, so I didn't think they were good enough to be in the top 25. Georgia Tech did move down a bit, again, because that win against Florida State. I'm weighing that a little bit less heavily as I originally was because they looked so bad. Florida State did in that game against Boston College that I'm a little bit skeptical on that Georgia Tech game. So they moved down just a little bit. We also got some new teams in here: Nebraska, UCF, Louisville. They were able to move up mostly due to other teams dropping out. But one team that moved up that was not just because teams dropping out was USC. They moved up way up in the rankings for me, or the ratings for me, after taking down LSU and looking good while doing it. Miami also moved up a ton. They were in the rankings already, but that statement win against Florida really propelled them up towards the top. Oregon definitely dropped pretty substantially after almost losing to Idaho, another FCS school, like I mentioned earlier. Michigan also dropped because they looked dead on offense against Fresno State. A&M is one that I feel people may be a little bit confused about. A&M actually did raise a couple of spots despite them losing, because I think they played a really close game against a team that looked a lot better than I expected. So, I mean, a team at this position is, I mean, they should lose to a team that I have rated higher than them. So they're about what I expected them to be, which is why they moved up a little bit, because I feel like, also other teams dropped down as well, which also contributed to that. Obviously, LSU dropped a little bit after their loss, but they also looked pretty decent, so I didn't drop them too far. Alabama moved ahead of Tennessee, not because I think Tennessee is anything less than what I expect them to be. In fact, they're just as good as I thought they would be. But Alabama looked like they had some things figured out that I didn't really expect them to have figured out yet. So I think that they're going to be just a little bit better. But we'll have to wait and see. That definitely could change this next week. I'll let you guys know. And then obviously the rest of the teams are mostly unchanged. That's pretty much the list. All you guys can look at the last list that I had and compare and see what changes I had in there and make observations yourselves. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and check me out on the socials. I appreciate all of the support, and I hope you guys have an amazing day or night whenever you're watching this. And yeah, enjoy Saturday football. Peace.